I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. We're at an inflection point, y'all. Renee Nicole is the best of us, standing up for her neighbors. I believe in self-governance, and it's become clearer and clearer that part of that, to me, is I get to choose who my neighbors are, not some invading force deciding who is my neighbor and who is not my neighbor. I'm going to continue with the Civ 101 with Danielle Allen, becoming, counting the cost and working towards becoming a change maker. I'm going to flip over, and I'm going back to from dictatorship to democracy, because that's how we unwind the damage that's being done right now. And one of the things that Danielle Allen says, if she can exhort us to do anything, the number one thing she would exhort us to do is to join something. Just join something. And if you dig into From Dictatorship to Democracy as a handbook, it tells us one characteristic, under the subheading Centers of Democratic Power. One characteristic of a democratic society is that there exists, independent of the state, a multitude of non-governmental groups and institutions. These include, for example, families, religious organizations, cultural associations, sports clubs, economic institutions, trade unions, student associations, political parties, villages, neighborhood associations, gardening clubs, human rights organizations, musical groups, literary societies, and others. For me, it's a book club and being a dues-paying union member. These are the structures that create the fabric of our society. I encourage you to build up those connections for yourself. And for my do-it-yourself activism, I want to read into the record, so to speak, of a letter I wrote last February in the letter writing campaign. And I wrote it to the Finance Committee. So Committee on Finance, United States Senate. And I'm like, why? What's the relevance? Finance seems a little bit vague. But in order to give some context for that, I'm going to read out to you what the subcommittees are. And by the subcommittee's title, you can see how far-reaching this committee's influence is. They make or break bills, y'all. Danielle Allen called it tactical knowledge. I'm trying to build my tactical knowledge of how this works. But Social Security, pensions, and family policy, international trade, customs, and global competitiveness, energy, natural resources, and infrastructure, healthcare, taxation and IRS oversight, fiscal responsibility, and economic growth. So my letter to this finance committee was because of all of these things. So it's a broadly written letter, but I was trying to reach hearts. It's my story. So I've read some of the letters before, and my story's my story. So some of it's redundant. I wrote it just a little bit differently, but it was written in the formal letter format. John Barrasso, Tom Tillis, James Langford, Marcia Blackburn, Roger Marshall, and then I CC'd it if I go down to it. And this letter is in the directory, the toolbox that's in the description for the channel. If you want to see this document yourself and use it as a template, I invite you to do so. CC'd is Grassley, Crapo, Young, Marshall, Cassidy, Daines, Tillis, Scott, Thune, Cornyn, and Johnson. And because this was one of the first letters I wrote and sent, it was sent by fax. Fax success rate was not good. At the time, it was kind of a frenzy because it was just after, Trump's nominations were blowing up. So I ended up evolving into a cut and paste friendly to the electronic comments submittal. But if you want to see this formal written letter, it's there for you to look at. So I wrote it, Dear Senators Barrasso, Blackburn, Tillis, Roger, and Lankford, I am grateful to live in the state of Washington and appreciate that my personal values are well represented. However, while serving on the Finance Committee, your choices impact Americans far beyond the borders of your constituency. Let me see if I can bump this up. My heart does not know state boundaries. Born in Oklahoma City, learned to talk and read in Alabama. I would holler, "Oh, Lordy," when startled until I was a grown woman. Taught myself to ride a bike and entered my teen years in Southern California. I tried to finish high school in Colorado. Had one baby in Cali, one more in the panhandle of Florida. In that area, you might be told you're in LA with a snicker. Lower Alabama. I can make a pot of greens that'll make you weep, especially if you find the hot pepper that I didn't pull out. And my daddy will go to his grave in southeast Alabama. Mr. Langford, I will speak to you for the sake of conversation. My apologies to the senators I wrote to already for repetition. And anyone that's out there, if this is repetitious, I apologize to you. My mother was a daughter of Kingfisher, Oklahoma. Proudest moment in her life was when her poem, America We Love You, was recognized by Governor Boren, making it the 1976 Bicentennial State Poem. I was sitting in class at Kingfisher High School when an assassination attempt was made on Ronald Reagan. I spent hours on the swings behind my house in Midwest City, watching the storms roll towards me across the plains until the first fat raindrops and the certainty that being on a steel frame swing set was a bad idea in a thunderstorm sent me inside. What I know of Oklahoma is this. Her people are not afraid of getting gritty. That the multimillionaire neighbors drove the same well-used pickup trucks everyone else did. Sam Walton established his Kingfisher flagship store to bring value to his neighbors, to help them save pennies whenever he could. I held my mom as she drew her last agonal breath in my arms. What had been her slack face got a cute, squinchy look like she had smelled something bad, and then she was at rest. She died from Lewy body's dementia that was undiagnosed until 2 weeks before she died. We never had much money. Lifelong health conditions kept her from building any retirement. Social Security and Medicare and the aging support Washington State codified allowed her to live out her last days in relative safety and comfort. I, now 58 years old, am the wage earner because of my husband's medical retirement. My job keeps insurance that will buy the medications that will extend his life. Medications Medicare will not buy. As an electrician by trade, mostly new commercial construction in the Pacific Northwest, my family is very vulnerable to economic swings. Unlike Moldova, at the time when I entered the trade at 40 years old, I did not have to take a vow of celibacy to enter the traditionally male trades. I worked hard, I worked smart, and I hope to do so for another 15 years. Trump and his administration is trying to turn a cargo ship that is the American economy up a tributary river to an ephemeral port of small government. It just doesn't make good sense. I used to say it feels like watching a train wreck. observing Trump cosplay president. But that is not accurate. It's like watching a helicopter collide midair with a small jet and wonder who could survive that. This cargo freighter is running aground. It is grinding our faithful neighbors to the north into the embankment, ripping apart alliances. The U.S. Senate is responsible for guarding the American people from abuse of executive power. In the common vernacular, Republicans, you need to check your homeboy. Members of the Finance Committee, what can you personally do to assure myself and others like me that the implosion of the U.S. government in progress, as promised by Trump and his cohorts, will be halted? There is a dangerous contempt for others fostered by influential people coming at us from all sides. It is on what is now the equivalent of the radio, on TV, and at dinner tables 24/7. It hurts families, breaking hearts, and bruising spirits. There is a certainty of violence. On what scale can only be guessed at if we do not change trajectories. Gutting the FAA leadership had consequences. My heart breaks for the lives lost needlessly in the interest of cutting costs. As an aside, remember the skater kids? The ice skater kids? There is an undeniably cavalier attitude that invokes an unshakable impression. Many influential people wholeheartedly believe there is acceptable collateral damage on our shores and heartland of Americans as well as foreign-born residents. Sadly, I would say that it starts at the presidency, with Loomers, Bannons, and Flynns along the way. I'm writing to plead with this Honorable Committee of Finance to be cognizant of all U.S. citizens. President Trump won the election with 1/2 of 66% of the eligible voters. A win with a scant 33% of registered voters leaves a lot of citizens that did not support this presidency. These citizens in the United States that I believe in still have a voice. It should not be left versus right. Please help us rise above that. Politics are cyclical. What has never served the people well is an ideologue in power. This currently raging fever of fascism by another name will pass, just as it lost favor in Italy in the 1940s. I would argue that a population over 1/3 of 1 billion people in the United States cannot be served by small government. That is a grossly unattainable ideology. The social contract as I see it, power is granted to the government to provide structure to our populace. Systems for safety and protecting our interests are necessary for civility. Period. As legislators, you are obligated to find a path of compromise and progress for Americans. Obviously, Americans have varying priorities until the Constitution is invalidated. I have a right to my values and the obligation to respect the values of my fellow Americans. That can serve us well if we all commit to that. Will you, as elected leaders, help guide us all back to a sense of community and dignity in the United States of America? And February 2nd, 2025. Less than a year ago and a lifetime ago. All right. That's it for me tonight. Welcome to my kitchen.